Coming to you live from deep within an icy, radioactive wasteland, we are the survivors of the social justice zombie apocalypse, the few, the brave, the bitchy, once more wading into battle against the zombie herds with Rantzerker number 45. Christians don't hate Satan, but, yeah.
Yeah. I will say that unlike feminist, Christians are pretty, they're pretty they're across the board about, you know, sin and Satan. Everybody's capable of sin. Everybody's vulnerable to Satan. Feminists, on the other hand, it's just mostly men.
Yeah. Well, and then I would say the other thing is that no, Christians don't really make a point of saying, well, I guess they say love the sinner, hate the sin, but they don't really say love Satan. Oh, no, we don't really hate. We think Satan is responsible for all the bad things in the world, but we actually don't hate Satan.
Yeah, no.
About that.
Yeah, they're not really big on that.
They're not equivocating on the issue. All right. Well, let's just okay.
They're slippery. They're not the slippery little suckers.
No, because of course Satan is a stand-in for evil of all stripes. Satan doesn't actually represent necessarily a group of people in the world.
Yeah.
A specific bio group in the world, whereas feminists, you know, that the men sort of are a bio group. They sort of exist.
Yeah. You know, as an accident of birth, and you know, and they're responsible for, you know, patriarchy, and patriarchy is responsible for like everything bad. So there you go.
Yeah. As I put in the low bar, another feminist telling us that feminism doesn't hate men, just patriarchy, male privilege, rape culture, manspreading, toxic masculinity, mansplaining, manslamming, etc., etc., etc. They just use the word man for their term for everything that's bad in the world.
Yep.
Yeah. But they don't hate men.
No.
No, not at all.
No. God, Alison, where are you getting that from?
Okay. Let's again, yeah, once again, just a little bit of business. If you guys want to send us a topic or suggest a rantzerking, or just talk to us, tell us your life story, please send those emails to topic@badgerpod.com. And if you want to help us get to SPJ, Society of Professional Journalists sponsored Airplay 2, go to Feed the Badger and throw some shekels in the hat. Karen appreciates it.
I don't want to go to Tampa.
You don't want to go to Tampa?
Well, I don't want to go anywhere, Alison. You know that.
Well, okay.
Go where I'm told.
If you want to tell Karen to go to Tampa, then throw some shekels in the hat.
Go the fuck to Tampa, Karen. Just fucking go. If there's not enough money, I will talk Alison out of sending me. So, fuck all y'all.
Okay. And with that rousing shill, let's
yeah, the enthusiastic shill is what I call it. So,
yeah, I'm gonna go a few seconds in, 20 seconds in. This is such dirt face, which, you know,
it's 26. It's 26. I can't believe it's 2016 and we. It's 2016.
Okay.
And we still.
Okay, stop. Back it up. Stop laughing. Okay. Just play the fucking video. God damn it.
All right.
It does look like a dirt.
I want to make sure. I'm gonna play. Okay, all right. I'm just gonna play the first 20 seconds, everyone, and I'm gonna make sure that this is working. So we're doing a completely different system. I'm doing it instead of Karen, which is why you caught that is 2016. It's 2016. It's 2016. Oh, because that's just still fucking precious. But I just want, if you're in the chat right now, please tell me if you can actually hear this properly.
I can't believe it's 2016 and we still have to talk about this. Look, feminism isn't about hating men. It simply isn't. By saying that it is, you're misrepresenting feminism and not allowing for rational discourse to take place. This is a logical fallacy called a straw man. When you say that feminists hate men, you make yourself sound reasonable because you don't hate men. But here—
Whoa, that's quite the statement. Yeah, we do make ourselves sound reasonable because we are.
Okay, just 1 second. Dog, shut the fuck up. And, I love how a feminist is trying to educate us on logical fallacies. I really love that. I'm gonna
Maybe-
mute myself for 1 second and deal with my freaking dog. Just 1 second.
Yeah, beat her to death. Okay, seriously. All right. Maybe if you don't want people to say that you hate men, maybe you should stop giving men asymmetrical blame for society and using hate speech like privilege. And the reason why I term the term privilege to be hate speech is because it has been used throughout history to implicate a group of people as having unearned authority or power over another group of people, and then subsequently that group of people was deserving of being killed. You can see this rhetoric in all kinds of propaganda campaigns. You can see it in Nazi Germany. You can see it in Rwanda. You can see it even against Black people in the South. That if segregation disappeared, that Black people would somehow start oppressing white people. So segregation was a preemptive strike against how Black people would take Black privilege and use it. I mean, even look at the freaking the propaganda around lynching. A lot of lynching was justified because Black people had so much privilege in the judicial system. Seriously, this was seriously advocated by people, and the same kinds of people who advocate shit like that advocate this. Because of due process in the legal system during the segregated South, there were people who argued that black people had privilege in the legal, like specifically Black men had legal privilege.
Yeah.
Seriously, they were arguing that, and the same inheritance, the same people who argued that shit back then are arguing that the legal system is biased towards men now.
Yeah, no.
For the same goddamn fucking reasons. Anyway, so maybe if feminists don't want to seem to be said to hate men, maybe you should stop calling everything bad in the world, naming it after men. That's a thought.
Yeah, no,
okay.
just a little thought. That naming everything after men, everything bad, might not be the way to go if you don't want to be seen as man hating. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next. And actually, I'm gonna do a little experiment. I'm gonna close off my microphone as I play, and you tell me if you can actually hear it.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Neither do I, and neither do most feminists. But you see how I said?
Did you hear that?
I did.
Oh fuck! That's so sexy.
Neither do I, and neither do most feminists.
No, you just want to blame men for every fucking thing. Everything.
Yeah.
And you don't hate men. You just want to use the same rhetoric that Nazis used against Jews. And yeah. I always get this wrong. The Tutsis used against the Hutus.
No,
the other way around.
Hutus used against the Tutsis.
The Hutus, I mean, well, they're basically identical racial groups. So the Hutus used against the Tutsis.
No, they're not identical racial groups. They're very, very ethnically different. They're physiologically different. The Tutsis were taller, and they were held up as the sort of the standard, the beauty standard in the wider, broader Rwandan culture, right? So, and they were the minority. So they were a minority of people. The majority were the Hutus, who were shorter. And they didn't have, I guess they didn't have as much privilege. So, yeah. We all saw what happened. Yeah.
Oh, no, Echo, it's on your turn. All right, so, but anyway, the point stands. Throughout history, one group has alleged that another group is privileged, and strangely enough, all kinds of loss of rights has resulted from that shit. But you want to play with that dynamite, but you don't want to say that you feminists want to play with that dynamite, but they don't want to be accused of maybe wanting to blow something up with it. Okay, yeah. let's move on.
All right.
That must be proof that some feminists hate men, right? Well, yeah, sure, probably somewhere. You see,
I know, somewhere, like, in some cardboard box in an alley, in the middle of downtown Chicago, like somewhere there's some feminist out there that hates men, but we don't know who they are, and we can't name them, and like it's not like they publish books and articles, and like they're not part of mainstream media, and they aren't teaching women's studies. No. They're just like the weird crazies who you know, talk to themselves and own like 60 cats and throw them at people, you know.
Yeah, not the feminists who are responsible for things like impeding or repealing men's protections against being raped, or feminists who are even responsible for that great solid, oh yeah, they were really about equal rights of, you know, giving women the right to vote, but without the obligations to the state that men had, which is not an act of equality.
You know what you know what I loved was the scene that I think Skeptor put it up a while ago, a scene from the Knesset in Israel when when a bill abolishing the tender years doctrine, because they still use it there, right, and promoting shared custody of children, when that was denied, it was when it was quashed by the Knesset. There was a clip of feminists, prominent feminists who were in government, right, dancing, jumping up and down and dancing and cheering over that victory. Yeah, but yeah, no, these are like just like obscure feminists who sit in an attic in an old decrepit house, scribbling their misandric ravings onto like pieces of toilet paper and Post-it notes
with their period blood.
With their period blood. Yeah, no. It's not actually anybody who's important. No.
Tenured, sought after for speeches. No, those are just. I like to use the would it exist without feminism standard for what feminism should really be responsible for. Let's imagine if feminism went away. So would the theory, or not even the hypothesis. I don't even know if I want to use the word hypothesis. Feminist hypothesis or feminist voodoo, feminism, feminist pseudoscience.
Woo.
Patriarchy theory, feminist woo, patriarchy theory wouldn't exist. So this idea that men bear some universal blame or original sin for all the problems in society wouldn't exist. Manspreading, mansplaining, manslamming wouldn't exist. This whole concept, this erroneous concept of rape culture wouldn't exist, which is fucking amazing to me that they would even advance the notion of rape culture coming out of a culture that used to fucking lynch black men and other minorities, marginalized white men and black men. They would used to lynch them at the word of a fucking woman. And they're coming off of that and they're pissing over, yeah, that's what's so funny. They're pissing all over the civil rights movement by claiming that we live in a rape culture.
They're pissing all over the bodies of lynched black men and Irishmen and Italian men, right? And they're saying, yeah, this wasn't society caring enough about the rape of women.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because now that society at one point after the 60s started to ask itself, maybe men shouldn't be lynched just on an allegation. That's an idea. I mean, they still are, but maybe that's not a good idea because there were people at some point who said that. The feminists now think that the fucking judicial system in society is biased against men. A movement towards being fair to men legally is biased for men now.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Okay, let's banana this sucker.
Feminism isn't an organization. We don't have meetings, we don't have leaders, we don't have rules for membership. If someone wants to call themselves a feminist while doing things that I would 100% consider not feminist, they're well within their rights to do so.
Christina Hoff Sommers. Here, I would like to introduce another test. This is the who does feminism condemn test. Who does feminism eject from its ranks test? Camelia Paglia, Christina Hoff Sommers. I think Nancy Grace is probably, Nancy, the one who wrote My Secret Garden. I forget what her name is.
Nancy
but
Friday.
She's probably on the way. Nancy Friday. Yeah. She's probably on the way out. Betty Friedan, she is probably sketchy now too because she doesn't just completely implicate men.
Germaine Greer, so, Julie Bindel, although Julie Bindel is a man hater. But she's
okay,
not
all of these people
because of her man hating. She's been ejected because of her trans hating.
Yeah. You are perfectly fine with misandrists. You give them no flack whatsoever, or you give them minimal amounts of flack. You're perfectly fine to have them in your ranks. You're perfectly happy with them. But you're not happy with Christina Hoff Sommers. Why is that, feminism? Why is that?
Well, because
and when you say that you have no...
It's because
well,
Christina
it's a rhetorical question.
Internalized misogynies.
You reject certain people from feminism, and you make it very clear that you've rejected them from feminism. You reject Christina Hoff Sommers, and you embrace Germaine Greer. You reject Camila Paglia, and you embrace Mary Koss. So we can tell what your true orthodoxy is simply by who you've decided to eject and who you've decided not to pester, not to eject, not to say, oh, you're not a real feminist. And the lines are very clearly drawn.
When someone like Julie Bindel comes along and she's been slagging on men for like decades, and she just in the last year wrote an article about how all men should be put in concentration camps under guard, right? Until they learn how to be human, right? That was okay. The reason why she was no platformed at some university in the UK was because she's not fond of trans people. Right, but nobody made any comment. None of the feminists made any comment about her repeated hateful statements about men.
Nope.
Nope. Nope.
Nope.
I'm like 2 years too late on that one. But.
We can very well determine what your orthodoxy is by who you choose to consider heretics. And all right. So you cannot hide behind that bullshit. You are very clear on the feminists you don't want in your ranks. And you are very clear about the feminists that you don't mind. And we can see the difference. So don't trot out the bullshit that you don't have an orthodoxy, because you do.
Feminism as a whole doesn't hate men. By its...
Jesus Christ.
I know. As a whole, that's not its specific purpose. As a whole, feminism hates patriarchy, which was a system set up by men because men are bad. You see the difference? Big difference.
We don't hate Satan. We don't hate Satan. We just hate all the sin he brings into the world. And if Satan didn't exist, all the sin wouldn't be there.
I think you're right. I think that's their reasoning.
Oh yeah, banana.
The very definition, seeking equality and justice on the basis of gender, sexuality, and race. Feminism isn't about hating men. But maybe you get confused when we talk about things that relate to being a man. There are a few
Yes, actually. I think it's fair for a lot of men to get confused when you talk about what men's lived experiences are in a monolith, and only when it's congruent with your fucking shitty ideology fucking bullshit. I would be fucking, I'm fucking upset. And I'm not even classed as the universal victimizer class. I'm classed as a universal victim class, and it pisses me off when you presume to speak from my experiences as a woman. When you presume that, and you're not even telling me that I'm the one who's responsible for all of this shit.
I just like that, you know, like if you actually if you ever actually sit down and watch feminists discussing men's issues with men, and all that they're doing, they're not even listening. They're just waiting for the guy to take like a tenth of a second to draw a breath so that they can like barge in, femterrupt, to femsplain to him why he's completely wrong. And here, I know better than you do about what men are like, what they think and feel, and why they behave the way they do.
Feminism enforces the idea that men have no problems. And it enforces the idea that men are responsible for everyone and everything. Those are traditional gender roles, my friend. And feminism enforces them.
Yeah.
It enforces stoicism on men. It enforces stoicism, and you do it by telling men what their lived experience is. And you do that to me too, and it pisses me the fuck off. All right. Banana?
Banana.
Concepts that we regularly critique and argue against, and it's possible that some of those could be misconstrued as being against men. So today I want to break down a few of those concepts. First up,
it's possible that some of these ideas could be misconstrued as being against men. Oh, look at that. It's just paused on toxic masculinity. Isn't that great? Yeah.
Yeah, no. Okay, well, it's not black people, it's just their culture. Toxic masculinity.
Yeah, toxic masculinity.
It's not Jewish people, it's just the banking cabals. Toxic Jewishnity. This is the same. What gave you the fucking right to judge masculinity?
Yeah, no, it's like they will go on and on about how, you cannot judge cultures. You cannot judge cultures as being good or bad, right? They are all like, this is the whole thing about cultural relativism, right? That feminists will use constantly to defend Islam, right? Or to defend various, other cultures, right? But when it comes to masculine culture, that all just flies right out the window, because that's toxic, yo.
Toxic masculinity, which is a phrase that refers to all of the negative aspects of our culture's definition of masculinity. So basically, when you're raised as a man in our society, you're raised with certain ideas about what it means to be a man, and some of those are very harmful. Toxic masculinity.
Harmful to who?
Yeah, no.
Harmful to who?
No, I think he's going to say harmful to both men and women. I think also they're picking and choosing what aspects of masculinity. Well, and they're not even picking and choosing, because a lot of the aspects of masculinity that they call toxic are actually what not just women want, but what feminists rely on and exploit. So stoicism in men, right? Feminists rely on that and exploit that in order to get all of their shit done, right? Because you have to have a group of people who think that they're impervious to harm before you'll actually have that group of people be willing to put their own well-being aside in favor of women's, right? Or not their own, but other men's, right? People who look like them. We're going to put our well-being aside in order to help women, to promote women. You have to have a culture of stoicism and a culture of sort of this idea that men are impervious, men are ambitious, men are they can dust themselves off and keep going, all of those things, in order to convince men to promote things like affirmative action for women, right? Where you literally have men denied opportunities and men's futures being neglected or being hindered by favoring women. You have to have that, because if men weren't stoic, if men weren't willing to just, put their own feelings aside, if men weren't willing to dust themselves off and say, well, I'm just going to work twice as hard now to get what I want, right? If men weren't willing to do that, they'd as one stand up and say, what the fuck is this affirmative action bullshit?
Okay, let's the thing is that I would say that there is one aspect that they could possibly argue that qualifies as toxic masculinity, and that's the expectation that men set aside their vulnerabilities and ignore them. That's toxic, and it's mostly toxic to men. So women get some collateral damage when certain guys who are expected to do this blow the fuck up, which is not surprising. But for the most part, the real victims are men. But of course, let's find out what he considers to be toxic masculinity.
He asserts that for men to be considered men, they have to be violent, aggressive, dominant, angry, and never cry or show emotions.
Oh, look what she's admitted, or is it he has admitted? He has admitted.
I don't know. He has 2 male names.
No, okay. He has omitted the following very common expectations from men and boys: do not hit a girl, provide for girls, defer. So do things that service things, like all of these things are consistent.
Just let your sister.
All of these things. Yeah, all of these things are consistent with service. For example, what does a doorman do? He opens a door. What does a chauffeur do? He drives people. If men are expected to do things consistent with what servants did, that's not a privilege. That's treating women as a higher class of being. So he's completely omitting all of those little things that men do to indicate they're of service to women.
Yeah.
Physically. He's omitting all of the statements about not hitting girls, all of the hatred our society directs at towards men who harm women. What's the easiest way to depict a man as a villain? You don't even have to have him smack a woman around. He can just be sort of mean to her. Yeah. And I don't mean cocky mean. I mean mean.
Yeah.
Not just a cheeky remark, but mean.
Yeah.
That's how you show a man as a villain, by making him mean to a woman. He admits all of these aspects of what men are told when they're told to be masculine, to be men, to be real men. Serve women, provide for women, protect women. Look at the guy who was blamed for being a coward because he didn't take a bullet for his girlfriend at the Batman shooting. That's another expectation on men. Completely omits those. He just jumps right over them, glosses over them to focus on violence, anger. What else was it?
Stoicism, aggressive.
Violent, aggressive, dominant, angry, and never cry or show.
Okay. Aggressive, dominant, angry, never cry or show emotion. You're omitting a huge portion of what men are told to be in relation to women. Well, this is what's coming up.
They're certainly expected to never cry when a woman hurts them.
What you are omitting makes this a lie, what you're saying. Because you are only telling half the story, if that, and men are not told to be violent. That's bullshit. That is a complete and outright lie.
Yeah.
That's a complete and outright lie. Like, there's no place or group on this this society who wants men to be violent, except in very specific circumstances and only towards other men.
Yeah.
So you are full of shit. That is a complete outright lie. The rest are omissions, are lies of half-truths. And why are you omitting the fact that a man is supposed to serve women? Maybe because your entire movement relies upon that?
Yeah, I think maybe.
So you need it to continue? It's very convenient omission, isn't it?
And
emotion. Toxic masculinity assumes all men to be potential rapists by saying that a woman who is dressed a certain way was asking for it, as if men can't resist the temptation to rape someone when they see a little bit of skin.
Okay. And don't be that guy campaign.
Yeah.
Doesn't basically take that assumption and enshrine it into some sort of fucking world countrywide campaign.
Teach boys not to rape. Teach boys not to rape.
Yeah, why would you need to teach boys not to rape if that's not the default setting?
Yeah.
Why do feminists need to go into classrooms and teach boys not to rape or hit girls if that's not the default setting? That's not what you're arguing is the default setting. I mean, who taught them in the first place? Their non-existent fathers?
It was their moms. It was their moms because their fathers probably aren't around very much. So if men are going around hitting women and raping women, I can't imagine that they're learning it from their dads, 50% of whom aren't in the home. And, another 25% are, away out of the home 10 hours a day.
Oh.
Yeah. Banana.
It also assumes all men to be straight. You've probably heard someone say that they became a man after they first had sex with a woman. And
dude, is that still a thing?
Not really.
Any more than the reverse?
I don't think so. And I think that even if it is a milestone, right? And it is a milestone of adulthood. First having sex is a milestone of adulthood. Okay, for both men and women, it is. I'm sorry, but it just is. It's the first. It's one of those things that you're really sort of only allowed to do after a certain point in your maturity, when you're a physiological adult. And so yeah, no. But like, is he going to argue that like gay men don't sort of see their first time as a passage into manhood, a rite of passage?
I think he's going to argue that means that men are compelled to rape or some shit. Let's find out.
Not wanting to have sex with women means people will probably say you're not really a man. This is bad for everyone. It's bad for women and other gender minorities who are often the victims.
He's using it as homophobic, even though it applies to both gay and straight men. The idea that having sex is a milestone of adulthood.
Victims of toxic masculinity-fueled violence, and is bad for...
What? Wait. How did we jump from having sex being a milestone for adulthood to masculinity-fueled violence? Just a second.
Yeah.
There's we just went down the feminist slippy slide here. And I want to find out where it started.
Probably say you're not really a man. This is bad for everyone. It's bad for women and other gender minorities who are often the victims of toxic masculinity-fueled violence, and it's bad.
Yeah, but no men ever are. No men are victims of toxic masculinity-fueled violence.
Well, I mean, no men really are.
Men are the biggest victims.
Karen. No men are victims of toxic masculinity-fueled violence because toxic masculinity-fueled violence isn't a thing.
Well, okay, but if it was a thing, men would be the primary victims of it. But except for, I guess, they're not really, because they're also toxically masculine. And when we give collective blame, the victim is just as much to blame as the perpetrator. Oh my God, I'm gonna fucking scream.
All right, is your boyfriend calling you again?
No, it's not.
Okay, well, all right. I see that the echo isn't back, so that's good. All right, well, okay. Let me just unpack this, because I'm pretty sure we just went down a feminist slippy slide. We started with having sex be a rite of passage, and then somehow we ended up with minorities and women being subject to toxic masculinity violence. Why is this never called, like, why did the people who listen to this ever say, well, wait a second, how did we get from A to whatever that was?
Z. A to Z.
Not even Z. It's A to, it's like A to some language that doesn't exist on Earth. It's like, how did that happen? I mean, there are some steps here that are fucking missing, completely fucking missing. You just step on the one side and then whoosh, you're all the way the fuck over in La La Land.
We beam down onto an M-class planet, but it doesn't look anything like Earth.
No, it doesn't. We're no longer in Earth anymore, folks. We're somewhere. Going where no one has gone before. All right.
Lots of people.
Let's venture into this strange land.
Lots of people.
Let's venture into.
What?
Let's venture into this strange land.
Oh, are we in Toronto?
Maybe. Armed with a banana.
Okay. For rape survivors who are blamed for what happened to them. And it's...
What?
Yeah.
How did we go from... Oh, no, but seriously, there's no effort to make any logical connection?
No.
Like, none. You just like, oh yeah, by the way, the sun is an extremely hot celestial body. Therefore, men rape.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. This is a 7-minute video, Alison. How much explaining do you expect him to do?
In 7 minutes? I have explained a shit ton in 7 minutes. Have you not seen my video? Like, you've seen my videos.
Yeah, I know.
I always tried.
He's got a lot more ground to cover.
Well, no shit. He's got a lot more ground to cover because he's trying to smash together concepts that have no relationship without actually explaining the relationship.
Well, but he's also got 5 minutes more of ground to cover in the same way. So
this is like feminist astrology.
yeah.
You know, the Mercury is in retrograde, therefore rape culture.
Pretty much.
Saturn is rising in your Pisces fucking house, therefore men beat on minorities, even though men are minorities. But men aren't minorities for the sake of this argument. Like, all right.
Yep.
Shall we, Banana?
Yep.
Harmful to men because it limits who they are allowed to be. We know that there are men who don't want to be violent and aggressive, but
Oh, yeah?
They are.
You think? You think there are men who like don't want to be violent and aggressive? You think there are men who like grow up with like just being totally well-natured, and then they're socialized by both their parents to not be violent and aggressive, and you know, or to you know, to grow into their full potential of not being violent and aggressive, just being like guys and shit, you know, just being who they are. And you think maybe, have you ever wondered, Justin Dennis, right, why the most violence and aggression comes out of communities with an extremely high population of single parent mother households? You ever wonder? You ever wonder about that? Maybe there's not enough toxic masculinity being passed from father to son in our culture. And
lash out.
I think I interrupted you. I apologize. I get an itchy trigger figure when it comes to this.
I was just saying, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is interesting, but I would like to point something else out. He's alleging that violence, aggression, and abuse comes out of socialization, which is bullshit. Unless you're saying that being abused and raped and other and neglected is socialization. No, what's this guy's name? Dennis? Dennis.
Justin Dennis. It's too.
No, Justin.
Sorry, Justin.
No, Justin. It doesn't come out of socialization, a non-existent socialization for men to be violent. It comes out having been abused. And that's what you don't want to face. And the only way that relates to so-called toxic masculinity is abused boys have no place to turn. And some of them blow the fuck up. Some blow the fuck up. But we were the ones who armed the bombs, not by teaching boys and men to be violent, but by ignoring it when violence is done to them. The whole error in all of your analysis, Justin, is that you don't recognize that toxic masculinity isn't something that men and boys do to each other. It is the reflection of the violence done and the willingness of our society to ignore that violence when it is done against men and boys.
Most violence and aggression is a product of fear or a feeling of helplessness, right? It's a product of feeling insecure, right? Or feeling unsafe. And you can even see this in like how just how dogs react, right? Small dogs are much more likely to be the ones who growl and snap and bark and bite than big dogs. Big dogs know they don't have to. They don't have to do any of that, right? So unless they're taught to, right? When you have half of all boys in inner cities, right? And this is not just in the US, it's also in Canada and the UK, right? About half of all boys in inner cities growing up without a dad in their house, right? They crave masculine culture. They crave adult masculine role models. They don't get them, Justin. They don't get them in the home. They don't get them in daycare. They don't get them in preschool. They don't get them in elementary school. They don't get them until, if they're lucky, junior high, when they might have 2 out of their 6 teachers every day be men, right? And you know who they turn to in these inner cities that already happen to be rough, not nice places to be? You know who they turn to is their same age peers. Often their same age peers who embrace swagger culture. I won't call it thug culture, right? Because that has all kinds of nasty racial connotations to it. But swagger culture, right? Where you talk shit constantly, and you're the big man, and you walk the walk, and you're willing to stomp down anyone who encroaches on your dominance, right? They seek them out from their same age peers. They seek those role models out. Now, honestly, is it toxic masculinity that keeps fathers out of their children's lives? Justin Dennis?
I just like to...
In a system that routinely expels fathers from families? Considers them superfluous?
I'd like...
unnecessary luxury at best?
I'd like to point something out.
Are we going to blame? Are we going to put blame where it belongs? On these boys' mothers?
Of course not. But I'd like to point out something that occurred to me while you were talking, Karen. Is it a surprise that they turn to these kinds of extremely shallow, aggressive forms of masculinity to assert their independent identity as young men without a role model that demonstrates a nurturing masculinity?
Yeah, no, I mean,
that's what fatherhood does.
It does. And boys need to differentiate. They absolutely, and this is a biological impulse that boys have to differentiate from girls, right? And you see it early on. Boys and girls play together quite a bit when they're very, very young. And then when they hit that age where they want to pee with the bathroom door, when they start caring about peeing with the bathroom door closed, which is anywhere from age 6 to age 8, right? Where they're like, they'll lock the bathroom door. They'll be really offended if you accidentally walk in on them, right? And between then and puberty, they segregate into mostly boys playing with boys and mostly girls playing with girls, right? And those are the years when they are learning how to be a man. They are differentiating from girls. They need to differentiate from girls. They need to have an identity attached to their gender, right? If they don't, they grow up confused. They grow up wearing freaking really, really poorly applied guy liner. And
yeah, why didn't, okay, catty statement. Could you not have done that in a way that actually accentuates your eyes?
I know, it just makes them look so much
just looks
together.
It's
close together. It makes his eyes look like,
I don't even wear makeup,
like a
and
round.
I know that this is pointy.
It is. It's nitpicky, but honestly, when you're trying that hard, you should at least do well.
Exactly.
Make
it look good.
Or don't try.
We're not complaining that you did it. Just make it look good.
I can guarantee you, this guy with his features, right? With all of his features and his perfectly straight teeth that are nice and white, right? He's an attractive guy. He's more attractive without the guy liner. He probably
that means you applied it wrong.
Yeah. So
okay, but yeah, that's the cattiness for today. I just want, if you take away young men's fathers, if you take away boys' fathers, where are they going to learn to be what role models are they going to? They're not going to have a role model of supportive, paternal, caring, masculinity. And I know people will say, but there's a lot of men who aren't like that. Well, there's a lot of women who aren't like that, but we don't take women away from their mothers away from their children very often, often. Because a lot of women don't embody maternal instinct.
Yeah, no, we almost never take a child away from its mother. She has to be really beyond the pale before we see that as justified.
Yeah. Banana.
Because it's the manly thing to do. We know that men should be able to cry and show their emotions. We know that men can be gay or bisexual or pansexual. By identifying toxic masculinity
male tears. I drink them. They're delicious. Men should be able to cry and show their...
You can't embrace a mythology of female weakness and give men the space to be vulnerable. One or the other, feminism. One or the other.
problem that it is, we hope to open up even more avenues for men to be masculine in non-toxic ways. Second is the patriarchy, the big scary word that's always associated with feminism. Patriarchy in its simplest form is a social system where men hold the most power.
What does that mean? And yes, that's the simple form of patriarchy, but that's not how you use it. You use it to men not only hold the majority form of power, but they use it to benefit themselves over women.
Yeah.
Because you can say, yeah, men have the majority of overt power, but if they're using it to benefit women, what's the fucking problem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
Okay,
and when do we talk about women's power here, Justin?
Never. Or the costs to men's power. How about that?
Oh, well, that's just it's a small print. Just sign on the dotted line. It'll be fine.
Okay.
Society, that's obvious in a bunch of different ways. A majority of elected officials being men, all of the presidents ever being men, and most major CEOs being men, et cetera, et cetera. When feminists talk about dismantling the patriarchy or destroying the patriarchy,
this whole all of the presidents being men, right? Okay, but not all world leaders have been men. Are we forgetting
don't get sucked into their
Thatcher, or was she just an honorary man? Like Golda Meir, Indira Gandhi, freaking Winnie Mandela, right? World leaders, like really, really, really powerful people who are women. Oh, how about Rwanda? Rwanda, where over half of their elected officials are women because so many men died in the Holocaust that they have a serious majority of women in that country. Yeah, no, none of that counts, right? Because America. How America-centric of you.
Well, okay. The argument is that, of course, men are in positions of power, supposedly power. The people who are in power aren't necessarily the people who are benefited. There have been, like that one big counterexample that I use is the Janissaries during the Ottoman Empire. Sons of Christian slaves, essentially brainwashed, put through trials, and raised to occupy the positions of power in the Ottoman Empire. And yet, they never thought to use that power to free the people, their Christian slave parents.
Yeah, their family.
They only used that power. They only ever used that power in service of the empire. Funny how that works. How when you're a group of people that takes your sense of belonging from another group of people, you tend to use your power to benefit them.
Mm-hmm.
So really, there's another form of power that you're completely omitting, which is the power of controlling society's belonging, the sense of belonging in society, which is often really what aristocrats did. That's why they were called the bodies. They were essentially referred to as their countries. Their country was the aristocracy was their country, literally. Or no, not literally, figuratively, but they would refer to themselves as being their country, embodying their country, because they embodied the belonging of their country. They had power because of that. And then there's groups of people who were in direct power, but still embodied the belonging of their culture. Like the Brahmin, the religious caste in India. They didn't take, apparently, as far as I know, they didn't take part in the politics or the war, but the religious caste were the highest caste because they embodied the belonging of that culture. And this is a form of power that you are completely omitting consideration when you say that we live in a patriarchy. Well, people can lead, but that doesn't mean they benefit themselves. People can lead. Men can lead. That doesn't mean they benefit themselves in that leadership. And I invite you to watch Omaha Beach.
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan. And tell me that leaders who are men are about benefiting other men. Because that's crucial to your theory as a feminist regarding patriarchy. You're not just saying men lead, you're saying men lead to their own benefit, and I don't see it.
Yeah.
But, banana.
Patriarchy, we aren't talking about destroying men, we're talking about achieving equality through justice. Since the patriarchy is a system where men are considered superior, we should...
Oh, you fucking asshole.
You went from a legitimate anthropological concept to feminist woo.
Yeah. In like...
men are considered superior. Yeah, men are considered superior the way that the non-religious caste in India is considered superior. No, doesn't work. Men were never considered superior.
Yeah, no. If men are considered superior, why don't they get the lifeboats first? And all those grotty women can just freaking go down with the ship.
Why, if men are considered superior, why was it considered completely appropriate for women to get the vote without the same obligations to the state to go die with your guts dripping out on a fucking sandy beach somewhere?
If men are considered superior, why would a man lose his man card for not shielding the life of a woman with his own body during the Dark Knight shooting? We didn't even know that woman. We don't even know who she is. We don't even know if she's a good woman. But hey, he wasn't willing to die for her. So he's lost his man card. Because she is inherently, just by virtue of her vagina, superior to him.
Or more important, more valuable. You know, if we think of men as being superior, which I don't think is superior is the right word, we think of men as having more ability. Even 50 years ago, the great dark depression of women's rights, according to these people, even then, which I would argue is bullshit, but regardless, even then, if we thought men were better at certain things, we still expected them to use those qualities in service of women.
Yeah.
Because women were...
And we felt that women were superior at other things. How come default mother custody, how come the bias against men in family court isn't considered by feminists to be a sign of female superiority? Why is that considered a sign of female oppression? Because we can be better, inherently better as parents. We consider them to be better at nurturing children. Well, okay. Whether they are or aren't, that's up for debate. But how come us feeling that way isn't a sign of female superiority? Us feeling that feminine traits are superior? Because
child raising is not a prestigious act.
Yeah,
I can tell you why it's not a prestigious act, because it's low risk.
You know, not to feminists, it's not. And this is what really fucking pisses me off about feminists, is that they will look at ways in which women are seen as superior, and they'll say that's actually treating women as inferior because they're considered to be only good at looking after babies, right? Or whatever, right? Yeah, no, that's not the case. And even if it was the case that we considered women only good for this, right? They are apparently so superior at this that we expect men to go out and work, slave, freaking sweat, bleed on a job, and then come home and hand over a packet of his pay to the woman who does that work for him, right? For their family. So we're looking at two people who are doing separate jobs as a team. He's going out and working and bringing home his money, and he is paying her out of the money that he earned, right? He is paying her for the work she does because he values it so highly, and yet somehow it's patriarchy that devalues women's traditional roles.
I just want to point something out. I hate that look of fake concern.
Oh, he's got a very mobile.
Okay, banana.
All want to destroy the patriarchy. Fighting the patriarchy isn't fighting men. It's fighting inequality and wanting to live in a world where we're on an equal playing field to men. And maybe that sounds scary because you have to give up some power. Because if you're at the top of an unequal system,
you fucking assholes. So do men have to give up, you know, more of their 40% of university enrollment? Do they have to give up like more than the 93% of workplace deaths that they represent? Do they have to give up more than the 99% of military casualties that they represent? Do they have to become more of the suicide? What more do they have to give up? What more power do they have to give up?
Oh, but Karen.
How much more do they have
Watch the privilege. This is the power that men have to give up. Watch it. Oh, look at that. All those privileged men. Can you believe the amount of privilege these men have?
That's pretty privileged.
That's pretty fucking privileged. Right there. Look at that.
Yeah, I wonder how many men, what's the proportion of men in this scene who are drafted?
Probably most, one would imagine.
Weren't actually volunteers.
Oh, look at this guy. Look at the privilege. Oh, look at him picking his arm up again. Oh, so look at that. Men are taught to be violent after all. Look at all of this. This must be absolutely the culmination of the male experience. Remember, guys, this is when you guys were at your most privileged.
Yeah.
According to feminists. He looks so happy. He gets to be violent. Isn't that the face of joy? God fucking damn it. But feminists don't hate men.
You know, but they excluded women. So
yeah. No, actually I've read the documents related to the draft in the 40s. I've read a lot of the documents because there was a large amount of discussion about drafting women. And when you look at what they were saying in like, for example, in the UK about drafting women, the ultimate reason why they didn't do it was not because they thought women were incapable. It was because they didn't think that it was something that women should have to endure. And also they figured that women were a bit too independent spirited to actually tolerate shit like being shoved out a fucking amphibious fucking boat to go die on go be cut down by machine gun fire. They figured women wouldn't tolerate that kind of treatment. And of course they're right. Those were their reasons. It was never because they thought that women were incapable of getting a fucking gun and going and being a soldier. It was because they thought they shouldn't have to. But this was treatment that women should not be subjected to. Go read the goddamn documents where they discuss drafting women and find out what people in the 40s at the height of male privilege were actually saying about the draft in women. Because feminists distort the fuck out of that history. They said women shouldn't be subject to this. They shouldn't have to do this.
Yep.
They never said that women were incapable. They said they shouldn't have to. This is fucking, but men, it's okay. These politicians were okay with sending men to their deaths like that, but not women. And yet these are the same politicians that feminists argue benefit men.
Well, but
fucking banana here.
But patriarchy, Alison. Patriarchy.
You do have more power than those.
Oh, wait, let's go back.
Sounds scary because you have to give up some power. Because if you're at the top of an unequal system, you do have more power than those below you.
Men are not at the top of an unequal system. They are at the top and the bottom. The very top, the very bottom of an unequal system. They inhabit the very top and the very bottom. So, how much power do you want that homeless guy in London to give up to make things more equal, right? How many more homeless? They're already 90% of the unsheltered homeless. How much more power do you want them to give up in return for 50 fucking female bums on seats in Parliament?
I'm going to point something out here. People think that the casualty rate, that they don't understand what the casualty rate is like in war. What the hell do we do now, sir? When you're judging, at least from the World War I statistics, enlisted men, that is men who are not officers, have an equivalent casualty or mortality rate as generals, first-star generals. At least in World War I. I'm not sure about the statistics in World War II. So you think that the men on top You think that they're actually getting something out of this? They're not. They're also likely to die. And not only that, they've been socialized to find this acceptable. This acceptable to do to other men. This is not a system that in any way hurts women. Because ultimately, when a society wins, when we finish off our blood sports and the culture that's on top, guess who gets the fucking spoils?
Yeah.
It's not these guys. It's not these guys. And even a lot of their commanding officers will have died as well. So who gets the spoils? Back home, sitting on their fat asses. I'll give you a clue. It's the same people that the politicians that sent these men to their deaths, said shouldn't have to suffer the depredations. Fucking hell. There we go. There's some privilege. Look at him holding all of that privilege. All of that fucking privilege. All right. Sorry, I think I've freaked everyone out now.
It's all right.
Shall we continue?
Yes.
Just imagine what it's like for women and other gender minorities.
I know.
Yes, just imagine.
Imagine what it's like to have
Just
to
imagine.
sit at home. To have to sit at home in relative safety, right? And just like imagine that scene on that beach. Imagine what that must be like to go through. Oh my goodness, so harrowing an experience to have to sit at home in safety and imagine those things.
To live in this world every day without that power. Third is gender role.
Without that power.
Without what power?
You know what power
Without
you
what
have?
fucking power? Women have to sit. Okay, does Hillary Clinton have to sit every day without that power? How about Golda Meir? How about Indira Gandhi? How about Margaret Thatcher? How about Queen Elizabeth I and II? How about Queen Victoria? How about freaking Winnie Mandela? How about freaking Madeleine Albright? How about Condoleezza Rice? How about all of these women who have power? Do they have to sit and endure what it's like to not have that power? What about the 60% of university graduates who are women? How about them? Do they have to sit and wonder, oh my goodness, if only I could get an education, but I can't because the patriarchy is oppressing me. Oh my goodness. What about the power of a woman who can go to when she's homeless, can go to a shelter that's designated women only and get a fucking shelter space when the 10 men standing behind her don't have any options whatsoever and they're sleeping under pieces of cardboard on heating grates on the sidewalk? What about them? What about those women who at least have the power to go knock on a door and find shelter? What about them? What about the women who have the power to vote? What about the women who have the power to vote without ever being drafted? What about the lack of power of men whose number comes up during Vietnam or Korea or World War II or World War I? What about them? What about the thousands and thousands of men who were drafted without the right to vote up until the end of Vietnam, when men started coming home with their limbs blown off? And that was when the government finally was so embarrassed that it decided that, if we're going to commandeer these men's lives and send them off to war against their will to die or get blown to smithereens, maybe we should actually give them the franchise. What about their lack of power? What about nuance? What about complexity? What about real life, asshole? Because not everyone is powerless, and not what about Oprah? What about Martha Stewart? What about freaking that bitch who wrote Lean In? What about freaking Marissa Mayer? What about all of these women who have power? What about them?
Okay, and I would like to add to that. How is it that women don't have power, and yet we demanded the vote without having to make the kinds of sacrifices? Like, you see this guy holding his guts in on a fucking sandy beach? That's the kind of sacrifices that men have made throughout history in order to have a stay in the state. They essentially gave themselves up as state slaves. And I'm talking about aristocratic men, even more than lower class men did this. They gave themselves up as state fucking slaves, as soldiers, in order to have the right to have a say in the society that they were indentured to, essentially. And yet, when women strode the fuck on the scene, they said, we want the vote! And they said it to people men who had to sacrifice their lives, who had to fucking die bleeding out on battlefields for it, and they weren't laughed at! Men actually did it! That's unfucking believable to me, and that is an incredible show of power. To be able to walk into somebody else's house that they built through their own fucking sacrifice and demand a fucking room. And then not only demand a fucking room, but demand the best fucking room and that they sleep on the couch. That's incredible fucking power. And women have it.
And not pay for it.
And not pay for it. Women have that kind of power. That fucking Second Amendment was women muscling men. And men not turning around and saying, hey, ladies, unless you're part of the group that has to go defend those rights, you don't get them. It's a fucking amazing, it's a testament to women's power that men didn't laugh in our faces at that moment, but actually did what we demanded. All right.
Okay.
Which you've pretty clearly seen laid out if you've ever been to a toy store. Blue is for boys, pink is for girls. Guns, tanks, and cars are for boys. Dolls, flowers, and makeup are for girls. Gender roles at the
Dolls, flowers, and makeup don't kill you.
their core are completely arbitrary. Pink used to be considered a masculine color, and blue used to be considered a feminine color. But that switched.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Okay, I'm just going to banana because I want to.
No.
Seriously.
No, he's saying because pink and blue are arbitrary, and they are. Pink and blue are arbitrary. Therefore, all gender norms and gender roles are arbitrary. All of them.
I know, it's fucking... Okay, but you have a deadline here, so let's get to it.
All right.
Sometime around the 30s or 40s. Other things we associate with gender, like makeup, dresses, or short hair, are equally made up. And this goes beyond material possession.
I'll tell you why dresses are associated with women. Okay? I will tell you. Dresses are associated with women because both boys and girls historically wore dresses. Both boys and girls up until they were potty trained and until boys could manage buttons or laces. Okay? That is when boys would switch to trousers. And the reason why they could switch to trousers was once they'd managed buttons or laces, which is what flies were back then before zippers and elastic, right? They could whip their junk out and pee the 5 to 8 times a day that people have to pee, right? Without having to take their pants all the way down around their ankles and squat, leaning back on a fucking tree. If you've ever been a woman wearing pants in the woods, having to go pee in the woods is a fucking big pain in the ass, right? Women never transition from dresses to trousers because when you have to pee that many times a day, right? And you would have to remove your fucking trousers to do it. And you would have to manage laces or buttons to do it, right? It's just not worth it. That is why men historically have worn trousers and women have historically worn skirts and dresses. And the reason why women now wear trousers is because it's really easy now that we have things like toilets and we're not just squatting on the shore of the river, right? Okay. Now that we have toilets and privacy, it's really easy to unzip your pants, right? And sit your ass down on a fucking toilet and then pull them back up. That's why. It's not arbitrary.
Banana.
Gender roles tell us how to act and behave. In that way, they're very closely linked with toxic masculinity. Men.
What?
Gender
okay, I had to stop with that one.
Act and behave, and that's why they're linked with toxic masculinity.
I think we've done another one of those fucking feminist slippy slides.
Yeah.
Do you remember those slippy slides? You know, that plastic you'd get a garden hose and you just
and you'd spray and you'd wet it down and then you'd just like go slip and slide and yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, this is what we've just done. Toxic somehow gender roles something toxic masculinity. Yay, go. No, I'm just going to point out the fact that there's no and it also looks like he's got seagulls on his eyelashes.
Yeah, no, he would really do better if he just sort of winged them out toward the ends of his eyebrows. Pointing them up like that makes him. You remember that the dingo ate my baby lady?
Yeah.
I forget what her name was, but she it turned out the dingo did actually eat her baby, but she was convicted, and part of the reason she was convicted was because she essentially plucked her eyebrows to look like that. They literally looked like Satan's eyebrows, and they gave the jury a really bad impression. Because she looked like pure evil. And this guy, because he has winged his eyeliner up, right, rather than out toward the far edge of his eyebrows, right, he just makes himself look like completely fucked up. I'm sorry, Justin Dennis. Learn how to apply your makeup.
Are supposed to be dominant and women are supposed to be submissive. Men are supposed to work a real job while women are supposed to stay home and take care of the kids. This all has the incredibly detrimental effect of putting people into little boxes, and we know that men and women are far more diverse than.
Oh, really? And feminism doesn't put men and women into little boxes.
Yeah,
with its bizarre theories.
I know.
Grounding
Men are supposed to be perpetrators, and women are supposed to be victims. Men are supposed to be oppressors, and women are supposed to be the oppressed. And we just put these two groups of people into little boxes where there's just no in between.
Yeah, and the thing, evidence that these gender roles of men as perpetrator and women as victim, you know, that it actually is it's a more androgynous situation where women are perpetrators and men are victims. They go ape shit. They don't like that idea of gender neutrality and violence. They really don't like that idea.
There's actually probably more diversity in what he's talking about, you know, with the women, the men going out to work and the women staying home and taking care of the kids and all of that. Well, there's probably more diversity in the oppressor-oppressed model, the perpetrator-victim model. There's more crossover between men and women in those models, right? They are less representative of reality than there is in the traditional gender role model of men going out to work and women staying home with the kids. Just given opinion polls, just given what men and women say about what they want in life, given the fact that, you know, when a couple has kids, the man feels an itch to go back to work, where the woman feels an itch to stay home and not go back to work, and will often do anything in her power to not have to go back to work, including convincing her husband to work more. So, I mean, like, you essentially have what seems to be sort of a natural bifurcation with some wiggle room in the middle, right, between how men and women feel, think, and behave, and the kinds of interests and motivations that they have, right? That's more natural than the oppressor-oppressed model or the perpetrator-victim model. It's more delineated. It's got less crossover, and so essentially they're pushing a model that is less suited to reality than what they're claiming they're wanting to replace. It's what they're claiming they're wanting to replace probably reasonably fits about 75% of men and women, right? And what they're saying is the model of reality, oppressor, oppressed, perpetrator, victim, is like, it probably only works in about 5% of cases.
With the reverse working in about 30.
Or more.
Yeah. Well, but I just want to point out, like, they say they're for gender neutrality, but they do not embrace gender neutral statistics when it comes to sex and violence. Like the statistics that suggest that men and women's behavior when it comes to rape and violence are much more similar than we could ever have suspected. Feminists are definitely not interested in those gender neutral statistics.
Yeah, they want traditional gender roles all the way in those things.
And on top of all of that, gender roles completely erase the existence of gender non-conforming people, because there are people who feel in between or outside binary genders, or people who don't feel any attachment to gender at all. And talking about gender as a binary pretends that they don't exist. So when we say that we want to destroy gender roles, it doesn't mean we want to stop you from being a man. You're free to be whatever you want. We just want you to be able to decide what being a man means for you.
Why not a woman? Oh, that's right. A woman is a woman by virtue of having a vagina. Well, why don't we do that for men too? We could just like recognize that human males, by virtue of going through puberty, are the most empathic, cooperative, paternal, and creative and innovative creatures on the planet. And then just say, by virtue of having gone through puberty, you become this wonderful thing. Let's just say that to men, like we do with women.
I don't understand. I don't understand why the existence of a binary precludes the existence of outliers and exceptions. I mean, like that's like saying that, you know, like there's black and white, right? Black exists and white exists, and they are on opposite ends of the spectrum. And then saying, oh, and that whole gray spectrum in the middle, that doesn't exist. Right? No, nobody's saying.
I don't know about the logic.
Nobody's fucking saying that because we consider some things masculine and some things feminine, and because we consider that there are men and women, that there aren't people who fall in between somewhere or even outside of that.
I think the echo is back. All right, let's banana this sucker.
Rather than strictly adhering to arbitrary and oppressive gender roles. Fourth is sexism, which you've definitely heard of. Sexism.
It's not arbitrary.
Is the institutionalized.
Sorry.
Discrimination against a gender or genders. Because it has to be institutionalized, that is, built into our societal systems, you can only be sexist against women.
Oh my. Only sexist against women, you say?
Only
sexist against women.
I'm just
conscription, entirely male. No women were drafted. None.
I'm gonna refer to my one of my most recent videos called "Oh, you meant systemic sexism." My bad. Yeah, because it doesn't. Even if you go by this definition of institutional systemic. It needs to have power behind it. It needs to have weight behind it. It needs to be embedded in our institutions and our systems, right? There's no way that anybody could argue that things aren't sexist against men. The only way that they can argue that is if they consider men the default for how people would be treated in a non-sexist society, right? Which means in a non-sexist society, women would be drafted. In a non-sexist society, women would serve exactly as much time as men do. In a non-sexist society, women would get 50%, not 60% of university degrees. In a non-sexist society, there would be no affirmative action for women without affirmative action for men. In a non-sexist society, women would be treated exactly the same as men when it comes to things like driving while black or stop and frisk policies, or they would be shot as many times by police as men are. In a non-sexist society, all of these things would happen, right? If we consider men to be the default as to how people should be treated, because it's impossible to be sexist against men, and therefore they must be the default. They must be the default of how people should be treated if it's impossible to be sexist against them, right? So let's get busy bringing women down to men's level, please. Let's go for 50-50 homeless, 50-50 war deaths, 50-50 freaking unsheltered homeless, 50-50 incarceration rates, 50-50 everything, right? 50-50 university, 50-50 marks. Let's equalize freaking the way we grade people in school to make sure that boys earn exactly the same grades on average as girls, right? Let's do all of this shit, right? Let's fucking bring women down to men's level. 50-50 workplace deaths, right? 50-50 women working in the sewers. Let's do it.
It seems only fair. Let's do it. Yeah. And then, of course, 50-50 CEOs.
Yeah,
and 50-50.
I'll go for 50-50 CEOs and politicians when all of these other things, because that's the only way that you can claim there's no systemic sexism against men, is if you are willing to bring women down as well as up to men's level. If you are really willing to treat women like men, and that also means none of this fucking bullshit about cyber violence against women and girls, none of this fucking anti-harassment panels at South by Southwest about harassment online against women, none of that, right? We'll look at the Pew results, the Pew research results, and we'll say, you know what? Women aren't getting their fair share of harassment online. Everybody either harass men less or harass women more, because we have to treat women the way we treat men. Otherwise, we're actually being systemically, institutionally sexist against men.
Indeed.
Or other gender minorities. Yeah, there are people who will argue that you can be sexist against men, but that's an unnecessarily defensive argument over semantics.
How is it fucking defensive, you asshole? You asshole, you're literally saying, okay? You're literally saying you're putting your fucking high heel on somebody's face, right? Their face is in a mud puddle and your high heel is on their face. And you're saying, my high heel is not on your face. And then they say, you know what? Your high heel is on my face. And you're saying, oh, that's unnecessarily defensive.
Well, can I just interject for a second and point something out? Not only did he omit all of the social expectations on men to be stoic, to serve women, to protect women, etc., which feminism relies on, he for she, but he's also omitting the idea that men can be sexist. This is simply put very, very convenient. That he is saying that, and as a feminist, he's saying that there can't be sexism against men. Wouldn't it be convenient for a group of people who want to perpetuate sexism against men to advance that notion?
Oh yeah, no.
There is no such thing as anti-Semitism.
Oh yeah, no.
Get in the train cars.
That's a total myth. That's like, yeah, no. Total myth. Total myth. And there's
no way that men can be harmed because they're men.
And honestly, people only perpetuate that whole anti-Semitism myth to make Aryans look bad.
Okay, banana, fucker.
Sexism require institutional backing? I would say yes.
So the fact that women get women-only scholarships, the fact that women got the vote without all of the duties of citizenship that men had, the fact that women could charge a man, jail a man in the 50s for having sex with her and not giving her the relationship that she wanted, the fact that women can unilaterally decide that men can be parents is not institutional.
Yeah, no.
It's not institutional.
None of it's institutional. Oh, yeah.
None of it is institutional, even though it's perpetrated by institutions.
The fact that in Canada, if a woman kills her baby, right, she can get no more than a sentence no longer than 5 years, right? But if a man kills his baby, that's like, anywhere from 15 years to life, right? None of that. That's not institutional. It's not like it's written into law or anything. Oops.
Yeah, but I don't even think he understands what institutional means.
No.
Practiced by institutions.
Yeah.
Affirmative action in favor of women, practiced by institutions. Scholarships in favor of women, practiced by institutions. Giving women legal recourse when they are allegedly discriminated against, practiced by institutions. That is illegal.
You know what's hilarious is that the definition of sexism in CUPE, Canadian Union of Public Employees, which is our biggest public sector union in Canada, right? Their handbook, their definition of sexism is that it can only be institutionally practiced against women. So even the definition of sexism, his definition of sexism that favors women and gives them recourse, is also institutionalized.
Institutional sexism against men. I dare him to find an institution that practices sexism against women outside of like religious institutions, actual government institutions, or academic institutions. Show me an institution that enshrines in its law and behavior that it is practices against it has a bias against women, because there are plenty of institutions that you can see have biases against men.
Yeah.
Plenty of them.
Yep.
And I guess the only thing he can point to is the idea that men are in positions of power. However, you would have to look at whether or not women win races when they run against men, and they do. There is no difference between the likelihood of a female candidate or a male candidate winning a political race. No difference. She has equal likelihood. So the only reason that women aren't equal numbers of politicians has nothing to do with institutional discrimination, everything to do with their own personal choice not to run in the fucking first place.
It doesn't even have to do with social, like casual discrimination, because voters will vote for women when women run as often as they vote for men when men run. So it's not even social discrimination or casual discrimination. It's neither institutional nor is it even social. It's just fewer women run. Right. And okay, so how are we going to fix that, Justin Dennis? How are we going to get 50-50 women in Congress and in the Senate? How are we going to get our first woman president? Well, first, some women have to actually run. And Hillary is the first woman, to my knowledge, who has actually run for president. And she is the least likable female on the planet. And so if she loses, right, I don't think that you can say that, and I know you will say it is, but I don't even think that you can say that is institutional discrimination or sexism. I don't think that that's the reason. I think it's just because she's a horrible, unlikable, freaking dishonest, criminal person. And people see that.
I would like to point out that you have an echo problem. Okay, I would like to point out this. How will feminists convince women to run for office when they have an equal likelihood of actually becoming a president or are getting into elected office? So women, when they run, have an equal likelihood. So the reason why we don't have equal number of women politicians is because they don't run. So how is feminism going to solve this problem of convincing women to run?
By telling them there are institutional barriers and the whole system is sexist and set up for them to fail. Yeah, no, that's
and how. And encouraging women to embrace a mythology of victimhood. That's how feminism is going to teach women to deal with the risk. Like you were saying in a previous Rantzerker, it is a risk to go into politics. You could do everything right and still lose. That's the risk. And that's the risk that's keeping women out of it.
It's not just the risk, it's the cost too, right? Like, because you will see higher proportions of women on boards of school trustees, city councils, right, provincial politics than you do at the federal level. You absolutely will, or at the really high level of provincial politics, right? You will see them more men than women than at these lower levels, and it's because the costs incurred in taking the gamble, right? It's like the difference between playing the nickel machine at the slots and, doing high stakes poker where you have to buy in with $50,000.
But essentially, feminism's solution to getting women over that risk aversion is to teach women that they're victims of society. That's feminism's solution. That's going to work, feminism. Get women to embrace an identity where they are solely defined by other people's actions. That'll help them deal with risk aversion.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking tards. Okay, banana.
Minorities, including women, face sexism, while men can still face discrimination. If you say no, then you think everyone can face sexism. Like I said, arguing...
Okay, if you say no, then everyone can face... Well, yeah. Women can face sexism, men can face sexism. I guess the gender minorities can face sexism as well. I don't understand why you're presenting that as an impossibility. Banana.
about this isn't very useful and only serves to deny that there's institutionalized gender discrimination. What I mean by that is how sexism is baked into the very foundation of everything that we do. It's how most characters in any show or a movie are men. It's how women are catcalled and harassed.
What? Most characters in any show or movie are men?
Why does he have this unpleasant smirk on his face?
You know what I want to know? I want GadSad to do a content analysis of popular media, right? Like TV shows, and movies and stuff, and actually determine whether most actual characters are men. Not just the people who like end up like, being paid as extras $100 to like walk past the camera in the background. But, the actual characters. Okay.
Here's the thing. Nobody wants to find out that there's more male characters. There are more male characters because male characters are more interesting because of the very same thing I mentioned, risk.
Well,
you can't risk with a female character.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you can't portray her as shitty. I still remember there was this show called Saving Grace on ages ago, like 10 years ago or something like that. And the female protagonist was highly unlikable, and the show didn't last long. As opposed to a lot of other shows that have highly unlikable male protagonists, like Dexter or whatever, and those shows do last. Because or Hannibal or whatever, because it's okay to hate a male character. It's difficult to build a show around a female character that is like really personally flawed, and she's mean, and she's selfish, and she's a drunk, and she's and she's weak-willed, and she all of this stuff, right? It's really difficult to build a show around a character like that. Because
what's going on with his eyeballs? Like,
I know he looks.
I guess
his pupils. You mean? He's either
it looks,
or he's wearing cat-like contact lenses.
Okay. All right. Well, the smirk is really bugging the fuck out of me. All right. Let's banana this.
Okay.
On the streets daily, and it's how women are paid less than men for doing the same work.
Oh! I got a really quick answer to that. Women only need to earn 73 cents to spend $1. There you go. Spread that around.
Yeah, and men need
when
to
we say that we hate
to spend $1. So spread that around.
Sexism, we mean that we hate how discrimination so negatively affects us. This doesn't mean that we hate men or that all men are sexist. It just means that we hate the discrimination.
Aren't you a man? Presumably? I mean, he says his name is Justin Dennis, so I assume he's identifying as a man. Why would he say that statement as if he's not part of that group?
Oh, no, people accuse me of this all the time. A lot of feminists accuse me of this because I talk about women in terms of they. So, I mean, like, I can totally, and he's saying we in terms of feminists.
Feminists.
Right? So, and he's...
All right, fair enough.
So I'll give him that one.
Let's give him a pass. Banana.
Discriminatory actions against us. Fifth is male privilege, which...
Wait a second.
Doesn't mean that we hate men or that all men are sexist. It just means that we hate the discriminatory actions against us.
What? No, now he doesn't... He isn't putting himself in the category of man there. That's not the same as what you're doing, Karen.
Well, no, he's a gender non-conforming man. Like, see, he's not just talking about women. He's talking about women, trans, gay, lesbian, bi, gender non-conforming, androgynous, everyone that isn't a heterosexual cisgendered man. That's who he's lumping himself in with. So,
well, the thing is,
I wouldn't as a man, but he's a non-gender conforming man.
So bisexual men get a pass.
So which?
Bisexual men get a pass. Like they're considered gender non-conforming.
Yeah, I think. Well, I would expect. Yeah.
All right. Well, it just seems really arbitrary, but whatever.
Fifth is male privilege, which goes hand in hand with sexism. If sexism is the idea that gender minorities are at a disadvantage.
Male privilege. Let's just look at a little bit of that male privilege. Woo! Wow, so much male privilege. For those of you who are listening to this afterwards, we're watching. Well, God, Tom Hanks pull a dead body through a field of dead bodies as he's charging Omaha Beach, because he doesn't realize that his friend or his squad mate has been blown in half. So much privilege. So very much privilege.
Male privilege is the idea that men are at an advantage. Now, that's not to say that all men have it better than everyone else. You also need to account for class, race, ability, and all of that.
Conscription cut across all of those lines, except for one: sex.
Yep.
But in general, if women are losing out, men are gaining something from that.
Again,
how are women losing out by getting to spend $1 after having only earned 73 cents? How are they
also getting? It's so funny because this is bizarre. The reasoning behind this is so bizarre. Like, how did women lose out when it took the government an extra amount of time to create a special class of citizen just for them, where they had all the rights and none of the responsibilities? Oh, but it didn't happen at the same time as creating as giving men.
Yeah, it didn't.
They didn't ask for a special version. They didn't ask for. It's like saying, the men say, okay, we're fine with the K car, and the women are like, well, we want a Porsche and nothing less. Porsche and nothing less. And it takes a little longer for the government to get the women the Porsche, and that's oppression.
Yeah, no, it didn't happen. It didn't happen in 1917, the same year that SCOTUS justified the draft as constitutional by essentially declaring that it was the reciprocal obligation of citizens in return for the rights granted by government. No, they had to wait 2 whole years after that ruling before they got their vote.
So
yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, SCOTUS said that the draft is constitutional because it's a reciprocal obligation of male citizenship. And then 2 years later, it granted female citizenship without the draft.
Yeah. 2 years later.
And this is what they're turning into oppression.
Yep.
This is what they're turning into oppression.
And the draft in the US is not gone. It's not gone. It's a big debate right now, even though everybody says, oh, there's never actually going to be another draft. So it's like a moot point, right? Except it's a big debate.
Then get rid of it.
Everybody knows that there could eventually be another draft. Everybody knows that, right? And everybody's saying, oh, draft our daughters, that's not cool. Yeah, no, because, it's like, it's in 2018, it will be 100 years between when, 2019 rather, 100 years between when women got the vote without the draft and, today, right? In 3 years, we will be at that place. And we will still probably be arguing as to whether women should be included in it. And it won't boil down to, we can't put our daughters in foxholes, because this is not how the draft works. This is not how military training works. This is not how dispersal of personnel works. It's not like they just say, okay, you 5, however good or bad you did in basic training, you're going into the foxhole, and you 5, you're going to go and cook French toast for a bunch of guys in the barracks, right? No, that's not how it works, right? There is no woman who does not belong in a foxhole who's going to end up in a foxhole. I guarantee you.
Yeah, but they're still not going to do it because it's going to be the hardship.
How dare we inconvenience women?
Yeah, how dare we? Well, that's for the men. But, institutional discrimination against women.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. I imagine that Justin never actually read the logs of the debate over conscription of women in the UK during World War II. I'm guessing he never read the actual justifications, where simply women shouldn't be bothered. This is man's work, not prestigious work. Because if you're going to say it's prestigious, I'm sure that the character played by Tom Hanks got a Medal of Honor, probably posthumously. But I don't like. Did you see how many fucking dead men The fact that you get a piece of tin at the end and a title.
If you lived.
If you lived.
Or your kids get it if you're dead.
Yeah. That's prestigious.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like maybe I'm being an asshole, but I don't think that is a privilege.
No.
But I guess the way a lot of men would think, they would say it's a privilege to serve.
This all boils down to like, okay. In the 1920s, 6% of women and 7% of men in the U.S. had a post-secondary education, right? 6% versus 7%. That was almost parity in the 1920s. Okay, because only the wealthy classes could afford to go to college, right? You know what changed that? You know what feminists in the 60s were screaming about, right? With, oh, men going to college and women don't get post-secondary, and women don't, and we're here to win women their right to an education. Yeah, you know why that disparity existed? It was the fucking GI Bill. It was the GI Bill that was brought in because you had veterans returning, many of them drafted by their government, and in a reward for their sacrifice, right? They were given loans, bursaries, and grants to either buy houses, start businesses, or get an education. And a huge number of men who, prior to that, would never have been able to access a higher education suddenly had the opportunity to go to school, and en masse, they took it, right? That was what and female veterans were just as eligible, but surprise, surprise, there were fewer of them. So, oh my goodness, now we suddenly have this super unjust, arbitrary, sexist disparity in the numbers of men and women attending post-secondary. Oh my goodness, the sexism, the horror, right? It's so arbitrary. It's all just about hating women. Fuck you, Justin Dennis. You've never read any of this history.
Yet you presume to lecture people on it.
Obviously, if you're a man, that's not your fault. You didn't create the system that we're in, but you do benefit from male privilege.
Oh, don't play another Private Ryan clip. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't. Just don't.
Okay.
You're loud and demanding, you're more likely to be called strong than bossy. You can walk down the street
You're more likely to be called a bully than bossy. You're more likely to be called a harasser than bossy. You're more likely to be called a tyrant or a dictator than bossy. Oh, big fucking whoop.
Having to worry about catcallers. You can dress how you want or sleep with who you want, and you won't be called a slut.
A slut means you've allowed too many penises in your body. That's not really an insult on women. It's an insult on the idea that, or it's an insult on men, really, that the idea that men's sexuality taints women.
You'll be called a player, a dog, a pig, a scumbag,
a womanizer,
filth, womanizer, right? You'll be called all of those things instead. Oh, and not only that, instead of being seen as damaging yourself through your sexual behavior, you'll be seen as victimizing women.
Having male privilege doesn't make you a bad person, and we don't hate you for it, but you do.
Yeah, I know. You don't hate anybody, do you, Justin Dennis?
You don't hate men for it. You're just using the terms that have been used throughout history to justify killing people. But yeah, it's not hatred.
You need to be able to recognize it. And lastly, there's misogyny, the hatred of women. This is very similar to sexism in that it's used to talk about things that are harmful to women, but I feel like misogyny has more anger behind it. But I think what really trips people up is that they don't want to be branded a misogynist.
No. Oh, I wonder why. Is it maybe because our society is not structurally, institutionally, or systemically misogynistic, and therefore when people actually are misogynists, they take a lot of fucking heat for it? You think so? And you think that maybe, just maybe, the plethora of male tears merchandise and the kill all men hashtag and the masculinity so fragile shit and the yes all women bullshit, you think maybe that just might indicate that there's a little bit of ill feeling toward men. And that it's socially acceptable. Because you know why? Because it's embedded in our systems and our institutions.
Because you can definitely...
Hey, moron! Fucking moron!
do or say misogynistic things without necessarily being a misogynist. We're all constantly growing and evolving, and we're all raised with misogynistic ideas in our head. So yeah.
By whom? By whom? By your fucking mother.
Oh, I find it hilarious that she's lecturing us about misogyny while trying to advance the most strict and in some ways really insulting to women gender roles in all of human history.
Oh.
Not just women as house, homemakers, not just women as mothers and wives, but women simply as receptacles for men's actions, but only when those actions are negative. That's it. That's all we are. It's just receptacles for men's actions, and then we spit out a plus or a minus. This is the most contemptible gender role applied to women in human history.
Oh, yeah.
And then he has the audacity.
We're all leveling up right now.
He has the audacity to say that there's misogyny, that unexamined misogyny. Oh well.
Plus 10 misogyny points for Justin Dennis.
Sometimes we're going to say or think misogynistic things. But when someone says, hey, what you just said is misogynistic,
hey, what you just said is misogynistic, Justin. This entire show, I find it misogynistic. Trying to force me into the role of victim when I'm so obviously not. Misogynistic.
They're not saying you're a terrible person who hates women. They're just...
No, I actually am saying you're a terrible person. But yeah, you might hate women. I think you hate women's personhood more than you hate women.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely think you definitely hate men. You hate women. You hate the binary. You hate the fact that there is such a thing as masculine and feminine. You hate that there are standards that people have. You hate that other people are able to think things about you and make judgments about you. And women and men. You hate that. You hate all of that. Oh my goodness. You just hate the whole fucking world, don't you? But
saying that.
But yeah.
I can understand the hatred. Let it flow through you, Justin.
The anger. It should be anger. It shouldn't be hatred.
Anger. Let the anger flow through you.
What you said contributes to the hatred of women, so maybe you should reconsider it. Hating misogyny means standing up to things that degrade or demean women, and oftentimes...
Oh my, Justin. Standing up to things that demean and degrade women, like you're fucking women, like you're fucking psychotic ideology.
Yeah, I know. It's like he's like, stay in your little victim box, because that's like the opposite of misogyny.
Men feel like it's their right to be able to treat women like that. So
to treat women like what? Like stuffing us in a box labeled victim, tying the little bow, and then like putting us on display so that certain people can like get political cookies from it? Is that what you...
Are we puppets in your political passion play there, Justin?
I think that by fighting misogyny, sometimes men feel like we're telling them what they can and cannot do. But obviously, you're free to say misogynistic things if you want.
Whoa. Haven't you just appointed yourself the arbiter of what we're allowed to say? I mean, you just said, let me go back here. I just want to clarify that this is as ridiculous as I heard.
So I think that by fighting misogyny, sometimes men feel like we're telling them what they can and cannot do. But obviously, you're free to say misogynistic things if you want.
Men feel like that we're telling them. Are you sure that you consistently refer to yourself as being not female like this, Karen?
I totally am a man. All the feminists.
I don't think I've recalled.
They all told me that before. All the feminists told me that before I started my YouTube channel, that I was obviously a man.
Okay, banana.
So they're right. I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm actually comparing it to what he's doing here, because it really sounds like he does not consider himself to be part of the group man.
Yeah, no, I think he considers himself gender atypical, therefore not a man.
Just because of the eyeliner and the long hair.
No, just because so much of what he's said has dealt with people who he says, are androgynous, gender atypical, don't identify with the binary, blah, 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 blah. He's paid a lot of attention to it.
So men taking responsibility for saving women is gender atypical. When the fuck did that happen?
I know. It's like
men treating women as a measuring tape for their own actions. That's so gender atypical. When the fuck did that happen? Okay.
But we're free to criticize those things. And it really doesn't hurt to think about the consequences that your words and actions have towards women. By hating misogyny...
Your words and actions. Okay, every man who's listening here, your words and actions don't have that much consequence. Like, seriously.
Well, I mean, it depends on the action. You know, you take.
Oh yeah.
And you.
I mean, you take it.
That's an action with serious consequences. But holding a door for a woman when she doesn't want it held for you, that doesn't really. It shouldn't have major consequences. I'm sorry, it shouldn't.
The rude comments really aren't, like, for most normal women. The fact that men think things or say things is probably not going to have that big an impact.
Yeah.
I know that this is flattering, that the idea that men can just, breathe slightly more to the left, and then women will just, like, en masse as a group, just faint and wilt. But unfortunately, it's not true.
And like men talking amongst themselves in a men's washroom or a men's locker room, and saying, maybe uncharitable or crude things about women. It's probably not going to, particularly since women aren't there to hear it, won't probably impact women much at all. And I would just suggest that any woman who feels that way take a really, really good hard think when she sits among her girlfriends and talks about men.
And whether or not she thinks that what she says about men has as much of an effect on them.
Yeah. Or on how society perceives men.
Yeah. Like, why are you giving up your right to having I think I've done something very strange. Yeah, that's incorrect. Wrong one. Why would you say that you have less of an impact as a woman on society than men? Like, I mean, there's so many examples of how women have had a huge effect on society and been able to create unbelievable social change. Why would you want to deny all that to embrace bullshit about yourselves as being incapable and frail and worthless? Or not worthless, but just pointless.
Yeah, or so weak and fragile that like the slightest little hiccup is going to destroy you.
Yeah, I mean, because the fact that Justin wants to put me in a little box labeled victim, I'm going to point it out. Like, that's total shit, Justin, but you really can't do it without my permission.
Pretty much. We're literally hating the hatred of women. I feel like that's something we can all get behind.
No, you're not. What you're hating... You see, the thing is that there's the physical aspect of being a woman, and then there's also the person inside the woman. What you hate is the idea that the person inside the woman is recognized on any level over the fact that she has beef curtains between her legs. That's so maybe you do have it's like misogyny is like, no, we can't recognize the person inside the woman. We can only ever recognize the woman. The genie inside the bottle doesn't exist. The only thing that matters is the bottle. This is what this is. And if there's any situation where we recognize the personhood of the woman over everything good that women do is because of feminism, everything bad is done to them by patriarchy. So you never recognize the individual woman. It's all this fucking collectivism. And that sort of pisses me off because the best part about me, I think, is my personhood.
So these are the 6 things that feminists hate that aren't men: toxic masculinity, the patriarchy, gender roles, sexism, male privilege, and misogyny. These are
all of which somehow end up being about men.
They're all clearly related to men.
Okay, well, let's
okay. They're all clearly related to men.
Yeah. They're all all of them clearly related.
Something we can all get behind. So these are the 6 things that feminists hate that aren't men: toxic masculinity, the patriarchy, gender roles, sexism, male privilege, and misogyny.
Okay, so these are the... Why does he go so quickly there? Like, I can't pause it. What the fuck is this shit?
He does everything quickly because he's like...
related to men, but they're not men. In fact, dismantling a lot of these things would help.
All right, it's hard to get back to there because I wanted to do a little thought experiment. So let's list the things that aren't Satan, but Satan is responsible for. And we don't like the things that Satan is responsible for, but it's not like we hate Satan. We just think that Satan is responsible for
sloth,
rape,
male privilege, and
lust, greed, anger. There's 7 of
heathenism. Yeah, the 7 deadly sins. We just think that Satan is responsible for all the evil in the world. We just, we don't really hate Satan. We just hate what he does.
Yeah. No, it's
all good. It's all good. All right.
And misogyny. These are all clearly related to men, but they're not men. In fact, dismantling a lot of these things would help men too. I hope that's clear. Feminists don't hate men. Saying that we do avoid.
Well, you asserting that certainly has proved it to me.
Yeah, no, me too.
No, that's it for us. I mean, you just argued us out.
Men so little that he doesn't even want to be one.
It's addressing our real arguments. And this video is a part of a series I'm doing for Everyday Feminism, a website dedicated to helping you stand up to and.
Okay, who sponsors Everyday Feminism? I'm guessing it's some huge institutional organizations.
Oh, I forget who started it. It was some cunt feminist in Britain. Not Laurie Penny.
Break down everyday oppression. So I'll put a link down below so you can check out my previous videos in the series. And that's all for today.
Okay, it's all for today. So that's let's
Let's
get
just
this freaking mug.
Yeah, let's just
let's fucking oh my god. Oh. Well, I know you don't want me to show another clip from
oh no, we can watch some Saving Private Ryan, because that compared to the video that we just unpacked, that clip actually represents sanity to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a marginal improvement, into what, I mean, it's horrible and it's atrocious and it's insane and it's awful, but it has more reality in it than that guy.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to do anymore. I don't want to subject myself to it. It really fucking bothers me.
Oh, that opening scene, yeah.
Yeah, that fucking opening scene just. And the funny thing is that I've never actually watched Saving Private Ryan because I'm not really fond of war movies. Oh,
it's worth watching.
I'm sure it is. I'm just like, I don't know if I want.
The whole premise, okay?
No, I know the premise.
Is that this one secretary in the military realizes that she's typing 3 letters of bereavement to the same woman because 3 of her 4 sons who were drafted have been killed. And the military decides that this one woman cannot lose all of her sons. And so they send Tom Hanks to save Private Ryan so that his mother won't lose all of her sons.
Yeah, I know the premise. Although it's good for other people to hear it as well.
Well, it kind of fits too, because they didn't save Private Ryan for his own sake. They saved him for his mother.
Yeah. And I know that having read up about it, that almost everybody else died in the movie.
Yes.
To save this one guy for his mother.
Yeah, so his mother wouldn't lose them all.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, you got to feel for the mother too, right? I mean, it would be like an atrocious, horrible, horrible thing. But the fact that the military wouldn't have done that for any other reason, other than this woman was going to lose all 4 of her boys, and they could save one of them, but she didn't have to lose them all. So he was saved for a woman.
They don't acknowledge that. They don't acknowledge the fact that everything comes back to how it affects women. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a privilege.
Well, it's a privilege, but sometimes it's foot binding, right? Sometimes, I think it is for a lot of women who feel like they want to go beyond that. But even when you're living in a freer society where you can go beyond that, you can always fall back on it, can't you?
Yeah. Of course, I mean, there's lots of complexity here. The thing is that when I see, the problem with war movies is it just causes me to get so fucking angry.
Yeah.
That any woman today could assert the idea that that there was oppression of women in the 1940s. Like, how that, I can't imagine. It fucking blows my mind.
Yep.
And it blows my mind that the men there, and I know some of them did, but not enough, told them to just fucking shut up. Just, what the fuck is your, and the idea that 2 years after the government said conscription is constitutional because it's in exchange for citizenship privileges. Women got those citizenship privileges without conscription. It just blows my fucking mind. And then they won't even allow the men of the time the liberty of needing to draft a completely new form of citizenship for Her fucking Highness. They won't even allow them, they won't even give them a little bit of credit for the fact that they had to fucking change the goddamn whole concept of citizenship just so women could have it without any of the fucking expectations. They won't even accept that as, oh, maybe that would take a little bit longer. They can't even do that. No, it's oppression.
Yeah.
Took longer for the government to build our Porsche ladies than it did for them to build men's scooters. That's oppression.
Yeah.
It's like so fucked up.
Yeah.
And this is why I do not watch fucking war movies, because it just pisses me endlessly off. It makes feminism sound like such goddamn excremental shit.
Yeah. Yep.
I've gotten really angry.
Yeah, no, and I'm exhausted. I actually gave myself a headache from all the yelling.
I know, you got really feisty today.
So I think we should go.
I think we should.
Because I'm going on a live stream with Skeptor in less than an hour. But
you're going to live stream.
I'm only going to be on that for an hour or so.
Yeah, they're probably a little bit tighter about their time.
No. I'm being tight about my time because I have other things that I have to do. So, but I allowed 2 hours for this. We only went 4 minutes over. 5 minutes.
Simon asks, what shit isn't excremental? Well, actually, excrement isn't. Shit isn't technically excrement. Wait, no, it is. I'm thinking of
urine.
No, because shit isn't actually metabolized. I'm pretty sure that's an excretion is something that's metabolized. So it's a result of your metabolic processes, like urine, whereas shit is not metabolized.
Yeah, it's just what didn't get metabolized.
It's just what didn't get
it's not. It's not all. Some of it is metabolized stuff, like
no.
that makes it brown.
Yeah. That's metabolized stuff, but the majority of the content of a shit isn't excrement. I think it's defecation.
There you go.
Yeah, and with that, if you enjoy these kinds of conversations, if you enjoy these kinds of conversations and these informative talks, please consider supporting us. You can do a one-time donation at www.feedthebadger.com, or you can support us ongoing with our incredibly enlightening and totally not grotesque conversations as a patron. www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio, because you want more of this.
Oh, you want it.